always say this, good grades are not reserved for people in private schools, for people in grammar schools. They're reserved for everybody, even if you're in a non-selective school that nobody knows about, okay? You can do well too. Hey everyone, and you're welcome back to my channel. In today's video we're going to be talking all about the study routine I use that made me a top achiever when it comes to GCSEs. Some things you might need to start doing if you're not doing already to increase your chances of doing well. The first thing you want to do is to set clear goals so that even before you start, you know what you are planning on achieving from each revision session. You don't want to go into your revision session completely clueless about what you want to achieve by the end of it. For example, I'd like to cover a chapter on fractional distillation and then do some past paper questions on it. So before I even start studying, I know what I'm trying to achieve by the end of my study period. This was a great technique for me because it helped to keep me focused and motivated throughout my study session. And most times I found that I was much more productive using that technique. You also want to have a structured plan when it comes to revising. Setting goals is one thing and having a structured plan is another thing. What I did was I had a dedicated study planner which I'd use to schedule my different study sessions. I went about this by understanding my strengths and weaknesses, and I allocated more time to subjects or topics that I found much more challenging. So this will be different for every single person. Just be true to yourself, find out how you work best and use your strengths to your advantage, okay? I guess it's a normal human reaction. We all like it when we're getting on with subjects. We all like to do subjects or to do things that we know we're good at because it makes us feel accomplished, it makes us feel like we know what we're doing. But when it comes to planning your study session, you want to be really honest with yourself. In as much as you don't really want to touch on those topics or those subjects, I'd advise you to allocate much more time to them on your timetable as well, and also to go through those topics or those subjects you don't really like earlier on in your study session. So let's say you've allocated, I don't know, 2 hours to do some work and you're working on 2 topics. I'd say work on the topic you're not too confident on first. Even if you're short on time, that's perfectly fine. You know that you've dedicated that amount of time to actually studying that topic and getting a bit more clarity on it. Because if you tend to start with the subjects that you like, you'll literally spend the whole session studying just that because you're getting the answers right and you feel like, oh, I really know my stuff when it comes to this. And sometimes you won't even be motivated to go study that other topic that you're not too confident about. Prioritize those subjects that you're not too confident in or those subjects that you don't really like. Another thing I did was I incorporated more active learning techniques. The difference between active and passive learning is that active learning engages more of your brain, whereas passive learning is something like just picking up a textbook, sitting there and just reading it, and at the end of the whole hour you've only retained like 5% of everything that you've read. Active study techniques made a whole lot of a difference for me when it comes to revising. Instead of just sitting there and passively reading things, I'd rather use active techniques like summarizing what I've just learned, using mind maps and the technique called blurting, which is where you basically just pick a sheet of paper and try to write down everything you've just studied as accurately as you can. It really does engage your brain and helps you see how much you've retained during that study session, and I thought it was such a good technique for me, active studying. Another thing that I did that some people just thought I was weird for doing if they were in the room, literally just act like I was teaching whatever I had just learned to somebody else, so like an imaginary person. It helped me to kind of like gauge how much I had retained, and if there's anything that I could not remember, I then go back to my study material and try to go over those things that I wasn't too sure of. One thing that people don't tend to do a lot is subject rotation. What you don't want to do is to study only one subject for the entire week. So let's say you do math in week 1, you do English in week 2, you do chemistry in week 3. When you go to week 4 and try to come back to maths, you'll find that you would have forgotten so much that you learned because it was so long ago. So you don't want to do that. I'd say keep yourself in the routine of constantly revising all the subjects that you're studying as much as you can. So let's say you do maths for half an hour to an hour today, tomorrow do English, next day do chemistry. It was important for me to avoid monotony, and it also helped to keep my mind engaged and make sure that I was on track for all of the subjects that I was taking. Next thing you want to do is take regular breaks, okay? You're studying, yes, but your body is no machine. Sometimes you need a break, and that's completely fine. What I found helped me a lot during my revision for GCSEs and made me a top achiever was using the POMODORO technique. It's basically a study technique that allows you to study for a set amount of time, for a couple of sessions as well, into interspersed with breaks. It depends on you how many sessions you want to do during your study period. But it really was a game changer for me. I'd study for about half an hour and take breaks between 10 to 15 minutes. After 2 half-an-hour Pomodoro sessions, I'd take a longer break. One good thing about Pomodoro sessions is that when you're studying for half an hour, your brain just thinks, oh, I'm not doing too much, so I'm not tired. And then you do another one. For me, it was a less tedious way of studying rather than just sitting there and trying to revise non-stop for 2 hours. During your break, there are some things that you can do as well. You should make sure that you're being hydrated during your breaks. You're catching up with your friends if you want to. You're snacking, eating some fruits, just things to maintain your body as well. Another important part of my success was the resources that I used. So using online textbooks, using physical textbooks, CGP guides, using past papers, examiner reports, and everything that worked for me really. I know mind maps work for some people, it might not work for you. So you need to be able to strategically determine what works best for you and keep doing that. And then you want to practice. If you do a past paper and you don't get the answer the first time, don't be worried, just keep practicing, okay? Just keep going back to things that you've got wrong. Make use of examiner reports if you have them. They're so important. It's basically the examiner telling you, this is what I want you to do, this is what I don't want you to do. They'll show you past examples of what students have done in the past and things that they liked and things that they'd advise you not to do. It's a way of you getting into the examiner's mind. So don't stop at past papers and mark schemes. If you have examiner reports available to you, make sure that you use them. I solved so many past papers, not just to get used to the timing, but also to get used to the different types of question formats, different questions, tests, and different skill sets that you'll need. So using past papers is a very good way for you to get in the habit of knowing what the examiner expects of you in every question that they ask you. At the end of each day, you want to quickly do like a 20 minutes recap session. Go through everything you've learned and see how much you can remember, see how much you've retained. And don't beat yourself down if you have forgotten so many things. It happens. Just go back to what you've forgotten the next day. One more thing that really worked for me was consistency, okay? You don't want to have like a downtime of a whole month when you haven't studied. You want to keep your mind in a constant routine of revising, okay? If that's every other day, even if it's half an hour a day, it's better than not doing anything for a whole 2 weeks, a whole fortnight, and then coming back to try and start revising. You also need to keep a positive mindset, believe in your abilities, know that you can do it. If I have done well in my GCSEs, then so can you. Even if your revision is not going well or you're not getting the marks you're expecting to be getting, seek support, okay? Speak to your teachers, speak to your peers, people who've achieved higher grades than you in your class. There's no shame in asking for help. I took people's scripts when they did better than me, saw what they did that I didn't do, and then incorporated that into my work. If you have to stay after school for half an hour to clarify something, then do it. So that's all from me for today. These are all the things that I did to make sure that I scored the top 1% in my school. Make sure that you're being gentle with yourself. Remember to have a good study plan, set smart targets, be consistent, keep a positive mindset, use past papers, use active revision techniques. Share your thoughts in the comments. Let me know how you're doing when it comes to your GCSEs. If there's any other videos you'd like me to make to support you through your GCSEs, comment them in the comment section. Take care and I'll see you in the next one.